I think the Mariners still have one more player to get. And the name I would love to see them get is Brandon Belt, and have Belt be the lefty bat as the DH. They've done a really good job of having a good foundation, Matt and Harold, of their bats. And I would love to see them add in Brandon Belt as their potential additional first base / DH spot. And that would really have a much better balance to their lineup than what we saw potentially last year, where they were close. I mean, certainly they were swept by the Astros, but it was a close sweep. It was a competitive sweep. And I think that if you find a way to add Brandon Belt there as one more lefty bat as the DH, now you're really talking. And there certainly was some conversation for them with Brian Reynolds, but I believe right now when you have J-Rod in center field and the Pollock and Kelnick combination in left, if you find a way to add Brandon Belt, that's a really nice 1 through 9 for the Seattle Mariners.
I want to go back and stick to the Kelnick. We'll worry about Belt another time, but the Kelnick and this move right here with A.J. Pollock, it's a soft landing. It's a shrewd move. I think it's a fantastic move to let the air out of the young man. And if Kelnick takes off, then he plays. If he doesn't, then AJ's there for a soft landing, and he may get more at-bats against a right-hander. But you're going to be able to bring Kelnick along. I think he's had a struggle, but the talent's there. They love him, and it's a matter of bringing him along gently. Now, we got another topic. We're going to keep moving.
Yeah, let me hit you with a couple other players. That's a reported deal. We have, I guess, some discussions on other players that are still out there. Look, somehow there's still help at the first base position for a team that's looking for it. You mentioned Brandon Belt maybe being that guy that could solve a problem. Yuli Gurriel's out there. So is Trey Mancini, who also could DH and play outfield for you. What's the latest on his free agent candidacy?
Really interesting market for Trey Mancini right now, and I would add Yuli Gurriel to the same conversation as a veteran who's still out there at that position as a right-handed bat, first base, DH principally. One team that I would mention that I think is a really interesting one to keep an eye on is Philly. We talked about the Phillies having made the move for Gregory Soto. Let's remember, Bryce Harper is not expected to play until the middle of the season. And for that team to potentially have some flexibility to blend in as a DH and with Rhys Hoskins there, I would not be so concerned about how the lineup's going to look in July. Just make sure that you've got a full complement and a good amount of bench depth for you and an extra bat to mix in there as the DH first base to potentially allow you to have Hoskins have a day off his feet. I like Mancini with the Phillies as a possibility. I know there's a lot of teams that like Trey's bat. I think that staying on the East Coast, where, of course, he played all those years in Baltimore, would be a really nice fit for Trey Mancini.
All right, Trey Mancini, maybe with some interest in various markets. You could say the same thing with a former Philly, a former few things, actually. Andrew McCutchen wants to keep playing, and why not? He's still a team leader, a guy that can give you multiple elements as an offensive player. Runs, catches, does everything you need. Where's he going to play in 2023?
I would love to see him go back to the original division that he began his career in, the National League Central, but this time with the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs, to me, are a team that's getting better and better as the months go along, it seems. Of course, they signed Dansby Swanson. I love what McCutchen could do, whether it's potentially filling in center field. We know they've got Cody Bellinger. It's a largely left-handed, it seems, outfield between Bellinger. Of course, you've got Happ as a switch hitter. I would love to see McCutchen join in as again, similar to maybe what A.J. Pollock is for the Mariners, a similar type of deal. We see what he's done certainly last year, still getting 17 homers. I still think there is a lot to like about McCutchen in terms of his professionalism, who he is in the clubhouse, first-class citizen, of course, Clemente Award for him in his past as well. I just think that he certainly knows that division well, whether it's with the Brewers this past year, the Pirates originally. I love McCutchen and the Chicago Cubs.
I want McCutchen going back to the Pirates. Sounds strange. He's in the final years of his career. They're trying to turn things around. We just talked about they're not fully there yet. But to have him there to say, this is what we do. We are the Pirates. I've been here. I was a star here as a young player. It's a great place to play. And then he goes off into the sunset in your organization. You can't ask for a better ambassador when he's done playing to connect him to a team.
That was just the word I was going to use. JP, thanks, by the way. I was just going to use the word ambassador, and I was also going to say I'm not sure Andrew's ready to be an ambassador yet.
Not yet.
He still wants to be a contributor on the field.
He can still contribute. He's still going to play, but we're getting to a point where he's not getting to those contender teams continually. He was there a little bit, but I think he is such a unique, special person. And
tract.
Yeah,
I got a hard time thinking that makes any sense. I mean,
it doesn't. You don't comp to a first baseman, a left-handed power hitter. You comp to guys that remind somebody when they look at you, like your comparisons of Matt Bacon, of Kevin Bacon, and whoever else.
So who would you comp Reynolds?
I would comp him to Nimmo. You know, you go to the guys and you look at Brandon Nimmo. 8 years, $162 million, and he doesn't play as often as Brian Reynolds does. Brian plays every day. But here's the whole thing. This is an interesting saga because he asked to be traded. Why do you ask to be traded? Because you feel like we're not going to win. He's going to eventually get paid, right? Well, so you're sitting there going, I don't want to waste my whole career on a team that loses 100 games. So he asked to be traded, and you want to go to a contender to give you a chance to be in the playoffs. And if I'm going to stay in Pittsburgh, you got to overpay me. So that's where that's at. And so I think he's sitting in a good position for asking the contract he's at, the $75 million. I see him turning that down because really your comp is almost $100 million more than you.
Yes.
In Brandon Nimmo, though, not in Matt Olson.
Which is still a good comp.
Yes.
Right. It's not like your comp based on your position and your numbers is a guy making major league minimum. We're talking about a guy that just got broken off on a huge deal.
Yes.
Brian Reynolds is 27 years old. His earliest free agent date doesn't hit till 2026. That's why the trade request as well, because he's still a few years away from hitting the market. And he'll be 30 at that point when he does hit the market. I don't know. Interestingly enough, the guy he was traded for in the deal with the Giants is a free agent as well, Andrew McCutchen, who was a former league MVP just 7 years ago as a Pirate. Is Brian Reynolds going to be there on opening day? What do you think about that timeline?
I say yeah for now. I mean, look, one of the reasons the Pirates want to get a deal done so they can trade him. You can't trade him without knowing what the numbers are going to be to another team.
Yeah.
So if I got him locked in and I say, here's the number he's at, and he still wants out, at least you can go to people and say, here, you know what you're going to pay him for the next 8 years.
Right.
Now, it's hard to trade a guy knowing that you're going to give up your prospects to me and you don't know what the numbers are going to be, having to pay him to lock him in.
Right.
You limit your teams. There's only so many teams that can really actually financially do that.
Yeah.
But if there's a number on him, let's say he took that 75. Wow, a lot of clubs are in on $75 million. That's an easy trade.
Yeah. Mark Feinsand, by the way, was reporting that the Pirates were looking for a bigger multiplayer type deal with regards to what
they're doing. And that's what I'm saying. When you have the number in place, that allows the package to be brought back.
Part of the challenge for the Pirates in this is that when you are at the bottom of the pack and when you're building, right? We don't want to be disrespectful here. The Pirates are trying to get better. They're doing everything they can to get better. And you have one guy who is clearly your best offensive asset.
Right.
Do you pay that guy to keep him and rebuild around him? Or is it more prudent to start at zero and try to spin him for other players that are younger, controllable, who may turn out just as good, who would arrive at a time as finished products when you're ready to win? And it's a hard position to be in when you're constantly looking up at the rest of your pack. And we could cite teams and players for which this is the reality. When the Padres, before they became what they are now, writing checks willy-nilly, when Adrian Gonzalez was like the best thing they had, and he was in that same state of mind where I don't want to be here and lose all the time, they had that decision to make. Every team goes through this, and it is a really unenviable thing for a front office.
Yeah, and I think the key point is he ready for when they're going to be ready to win? Brian's sitting there going, I'm not waiting 3 years.
Yeah.
get me out now. And the Pirates are saying, you got to take this deal and we can trade you. That's how I see it.
It's tough. Let's take a break. We'll get on to something a little lighter after a break. That is the national championship.